evening and welcome to the Goffstown Select Board March 24th, 2025 meeting. Would you please all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Minutes came out this afternoon. I don't know if everybody had a chance to read them.
I did.
You did?
Yep.
Yep, mine did also.
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
Okay, go by date. First
First
one's
one was
310.
March 10th.
3/10/25, public and non-public minutes.
No, they weren't here, right? No, you have to second. So there's going to be 3 of us voting with 2 abstaining because they weren't on the board at the time. So any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, so it's 302. And then the next one's 317, Mark, or somebody?
I'll make a motion to accept the 3/17/2025, public and non-public minutes with corrections if need be.
Second that.
So motion by Mark, seconded by Jim. Any discussion, guys? Nothing, everybody happy?
Yep.
Okay. Nothing further comment, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. Derek, I see no announcements for this evening.
Correct, I believe you have a draft proclamation.
Okay, we'll do that under here. So we do have a proclamation tonight, and it reads as, whereas the library spark creativity, fuel imagination, and inspire lifelong learning, offering a space where individuals of all ages can explore new ideas and be drawn into new possibilities. Whereas the library serves a vibrant community hub connecting people with knowledge, technology, and resources while fostering civic engagement, critical thinking, and lifelong learning. And whereas libraries provide free and equitable access to books, digital tools, and innovative programming, ensuring that all individuals, regardless of background, have the support they need to learn, connect, and thrive. And whereas libraries partner with schools, businesses, and organizations, connecting the dots to maximize resources, increase efficiency, and expand access to essential services, strengthening the entire community. And whereas libraries empower job seekers, entrepreneurs, and lifelong learners, providing access and resource training and opportunities that support career growth and economic success. And whereas libraries nurture young minds through story times, STEAM programs, and literacy incentives, fostering curiosity and love of learning that lasts a lifetime. And whereas libraries protect the right to read, think, explore without censorship, standing as champions of the intellectual freedom and freedom of express. Whereas dedicated librarians and library workers provide welcoming spaces that inspire discovery, collaboration, and creativity for all. Whereas libraries, librarians, and library workers across the country are joining together to celebrate National Library Week under the theme Drawn to the Library. Now, therefore, we, the Select Board, Town of Goffstown, County of Hillsborough, State of New Hampshire, by the virtue vested in us, do hereby proclaim April 6th through the 12th, 2025, as National Library Week. With the theme of Drawn to Library, during the week, we encourage all residents to visit the Goffstown Public Library, explore its resources, and celebrate all the ways the library draws us together as a community. Given under our hands and sealed this 24th day of March in the year of our Lord, 2025. And we will submit the proclamation to the library. Okay, that's done. Anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment. David, you want to come up? We have an appointment with David Neiman from the Conservation Commission. This is in reference to acquisition of conservation land map 6, lot 55. And we also have J.D. Miles with us.
Yeah, so David Neiman, 215 Page Hill Road, Goffstown, and a member of the Conservation Commission representing them, along with Gene Walker.
Gene
who is
Walker,
our
yeah.
chairman.
Walker, I say Miles because
Gene Miles or Gene Walker.
when we grew up, it was Gene Miles.
We did.
Okay, so gonna have to be very quick here because I initially filled out the form and requested 10 minutes. However, a lot of commentary was attached to my application. So I accept the challenge. I'll try to do this in 10 minutes. What we're requesting is there's the subdivision project on Terrell Hill Road, which you've all gotten the maps for and all that. And it has a large open space area that will result from it. It's an open space subdivision project, 117 acres. We were hoping that a land trust would take over, particularly the PLC, but the PLC declined. They declined over a month ago. And I just contacted them last Friday just to verify once again they absolutely have declined. So our plan B was for the Conservation Commission to take over the conservation area. The reason we want to do that is it has some really good resources on it, including a prime wetland. But the main reason is to keep it open to the public, because a lot of people in that area enjoy that space, even though it's currently private. If it goes to a homeowners association, then that access won't be there. And so that's the basic reason for our proposal. Now, there were some concerns that were raised and submitted along with my application, so I'd like to address some of those. First of all, I want to correct something which is absolutely wrong, and that is there's a statement in here. Well, it lists currently the town has ownership interests in 481 acres under the town. I don't dispute that. 333 acres under conservation. I don't dispute that. But then it says 1,415 acres of land under conservation easement where the town has an executory interest. Well, true enough, but the executory interest does not bring any kind of commitment or burden to the town. The whole reason we've been working with land trusts all these years is because they assume the burden of the stewardship. They do all the work of the stewardship. The executory interest is a clause that goes into those easements that says if something should happen to this organization, if they should fail, if they should go bankrupt or whatever, the town or any other entity that made any financial contribution towards this project has the right to assume that easement or to assume the disposition of where that easement goes. Probably would make arrangements to go to another land trust. That's what typically happens.
Excuse me, could you just explain to everybody what the land trust is, real quick?
Yeah, a land trust is a nonprofit organization that monitors and, well, it assumes a conservation easement. A conservation easement is when someone gives up the rights to development on their land. They still own the land, but they give up the development rights, either donating them or selling them. And typically a nonprofit like the Forest Society Protection or the Nature Conservancy, or in our case the Piscataqua Land Conservancy, assumes those rights with that conservation easement, and the land stays undeveloped in perpetuity. And the executory interest is because, well, we use some money from our conservation fund to contribute towards this project. We just want to, if something happens, be covered.
All right, I just want to make sure everybody,
Yeah.
people are watching TV also.
So the land trust does all the work. The only responsibility we have is the land trust actually monitoring the project. And the effort for that is like as minimal as it could possibly be. Whenever they do a report, an inspection or annual inspection, they send us a copy of the report. Our job, well, we should probably read it, whether it gets read or not, I don't know. And we put it in the file cabinet, file it away. That's it. That's the responsibility. So to include this 1,415 acres and, and make it look as though this is a big burden of the town, that's just not true. And if you run the numbers, it's not 10% of the town we have to deal with. If you looked at only the 333 acres reported as being under conservation, that's 1%, not 10%. If you looked at, included the town-owned land, which Conservation Commission is not going to be monitoring DPW land. But even if you included all that, it's still only 3%. So I want to dismiss that number because it's just not correct. The question is, does the Open Space Committee have a plan? Well, yeah, we have a plan. We've had a plan since 2006. It's an addendum to the master plan. It's the Open Space Conservation Plan. It was accepted by the town and added to the master plan at that time. And it does have a section on the stewardship of public lands. This is all available online. I just brought in this whole thing because the only printed copy I had. The real question should be, is this up to date? No, we need to update it. It's old and there's a lot of changes that need to be made. And it needs to be dramatically expanded, getting more details on how the site visits work. And in fact, we're doing that right now. I have already rewritten much of this. At our next Conservation Commission meeting, we will be reviewing the changes which are being made. The basis for it was we took all our basic information, followed the guidelines of the Land Trust Alliance, a national organization that all the land trusts follow. They monitor, they certify, they get the approval of federal government, state and local governments. So those are pretty good standards to go by, and that's what we follow. Some of the other things that we'll be adding and that I've already put in to the edits I'm making is, so we should have some kind of standardized form when you go out and do the inspections. This is actually downloaded from UNH Cooperative. They've provided a whole bunch of useful documents to all the towns in New Hampshire. As an example, the town of Durham, which took this form and modified it a bit for their own uses, and that's what we'll do, because there's a few extra fields I'd like to see in there that they didn't include. When we send people out to do the monitoring, they should know what's going on. They should be trained. We want to have consistency. We want to have good results. So we need to have a training program. Well, that's also completely provided by UNH Extension. They have a complete course for the training. It also, has instructions for the instructors. It has instructions for the person taking the course. Further, more detailed courses on outdoor skills for conservation, easements, trail maintenance for volunteers. It's very complete. Includes both classroom instruction and in the field experience and instruction. And we will be using that to train our monitors that go out. This open space revision, our open space plan revision will be completed this year. You have my word on it. I guarantee that's going to happen because it's already in progress. One of the first things that we need to do is, a lot of this we didn't do over all those years because almost all the projects we did were conservation easements with land trusts. We didn't need to go out and do any inspection. We didn't at all for any of those new lands we took on. Until about 2018 or 2019, I'm not sure which year, is when we made the first acquisitions around the marsh, Page Hill Marsh, where we got that directly for the town because the land trust didn't want to do it. They were small parcels that we did, but there were 4 of them. You put them together and you got something good.
Yeah, I have to stop you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you to come back, just go sit back for a few minutes, we'll come back and finish up with you, okay? I have a
Okay.
public hearing scheduled at 6:50.
Yeah. Well, I tried. I guess I didn't quite make this. Thank you.
Don't run away. Do we have a public public hearing notice? I don't see one in here.
No, I'm not seeing it in here, but I can, let me see, looks like it was left out of the packet. I can read what you're reading here. seeing it in there, so. This is a public hearing for the board to decide on a discretionary preservation easement under RSA 79D. The property in question is 68 Merrill Road, which is map 4, lot 6, and this is for an existing barn. And I know the town assessor is here and can provide us a background on the property.
Okay, Scott, did you want to come up? Sure. Scott Bartlett is our town assessor.
Hello, again, I'm Scott Bartlett, I'm the town assessor. I did give you a letter recommending that we do accept the request for a discretionary preservation easement. This is for barns. Basically, right now we have 3 active easements. We have another one that we're going to be, is it 3? Apologize, I know we removed one. Correct, we have 3 active right now. We have a 4th that is submitted an application for renewal. These easements go for 10 years. Basically what it does is it freezes the assessment for 10 years at 50% of the assessment that it would be without the easement. So essentially it does give a tax break. It keeps that tax break in place for a period of 10 years, and basically the intent is to allow property owners to maintain, maybe improve those barns and not be hit with an increase in the assessment over that 10-year period. It's to preserve historical barns. This one does meet all of the requirements for under the statute. In the past, we have always granted 50% of the assessed value. The statute allows us to use 25% to 75%. Our town has always chosen 50%, right smack dab in the middle. I believe we set precedent by doing that, so I would recommend that we stay with that, 50%. Other than that, if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Anybody?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, Scott, I did have a couple questions. I think this was the one that I read ahead of time. One of the reasons that they were asking for this is that they would use it to revamp the barn, is that correct?
I believe it would be better if you asked the owner, but I do believe they do intend to maintain and, maybe not, again, I don't know all of their plans,
Okay.
but it's basically to maintain the barn.
I guess a question maybe you could answer, Scott, is like, out of all the ones that we currently have, how many of them are actually on the National Register for Historic Places?
I don't believe any of them are.
Okay.
Anybody else? When you say 50% of the assessment, is that assessment frozen?
It's frozen for 10 years.
Jim?
Can they do anything to the barn? Are they limited in what they can do for improvements or
Well,
upkeep and?
they can the purpose is to maintain the integrity of a historical barn. They can, with permission from the board, use it for other purposes other than agricultural, but any improvements they make to the barn that are not consistent with the use as an agricultural barn, those would be assessed at 100% of market value. So as long as it has the appearance and continues to be used, they can use it for storage. They don't have to be using it for agricultural. But if they were to start putting heat in there, they start to put, insulation, and those types of improvements would be assessed. If all they're doing is maintaining that integrity, and it still looks like an agricultural historical barn, those increases in assessment would not take place until 10 years from now.
So I've seen people renovate barns and live in them, and the outside may look exactly like this, but it's completely different inside, so that would be assessed at a higher value, right, if they did something
Correct.
like that?
And I'll be honest with you, if they were going to convert this into living space, I do believe that would be a violation of the intent.
So do you check up on that occasionally, or?
Yes.
They'd have to get permits, et cetera, right?
They still have to get permits. I mean, you know, it doesn't excuse them from getting permits for any extensive work they're going to be doing. And anytime a property owner gets a permit, I look at the permits, I go out and I look at the property. That's part of my yearly maintenance for all properties.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Scott?
What happens if the barn does deteriorate over time?
Well, that would be at the will of the select board. If for some reason it is starting to deteriorate and it's no longer maintained and as expected, if I notice that, I would bring that to the board's attention, and then it would be up to the board whether to take action. There are in statute ways to take action against that. Typically what it is we would inform the property owner that they're not living up to the expectations of the easement. They would be given a certain amount of time to correct that. If they didn't, then the board could issue a penalty. If it's in the first 5 years of the easement, it's 20% of the market value of the barn. If it's in the next 5 years, it's 15% of the market value of the barn.
Okay.
And if they sold the property during the 10-year period?
They can sell the property, and the easement goes with the property. Yeah. The agreement or the easement deed that is before the board, that if you agree to this, you would be signing, is recorded at the Hillsborough County Registry of Deeds.
Great. Anybody else? Thank you, Scott. Now we'll open up the public hearing. Is there anybody here from the public to speak to this? State your name and address, please.
Hi, Stephanie Hollenbeck, 68 Merrill Road.
Dan Goldschmidt, 68 Merrill Road. We're the applicants, and we thank you for your time tonight. I'll keep this very short and very sweet, as I know you have a long agenda ahead. I presume familiarity with the application we have on file and with, Scott's letter and the points that he just called out now, so mostly we just want to make ourselves available to answer any questions you may have. I will just say, we feel very fortunate to be stewards of this cool old property. The property dates back to 1750. It was part of the original Narragansett Grant number 4 in 1734. It was owned by the Butterfields for 100 years, farmed by them, owned by the Merrills for 150 years, used for agricultural purposes by them, including maple syrup, which we continue to make on the property together with heirs of descendants of the Merrill family. So we're very much trying to keep that tradition alive. Hopefully members of the board have seen the property going up and down Merrill Road over the years. I mean, it really is stunning, and we feel lucky to have it. In 2022, when we purchased it, we became, I think, the 5th ever owners of the property, and we were up against some developers who wanted to potentially knock it all down and subdivide. And it was our intention to preserve the house and the agricultural buildings, which are the subject of the application. The house is not. But I wanted to state those intentions and how seriously we take the obligation that's on us. We're relatively new to town, but we understand what an awesome part of the town's history this is, and we appreciate that the state has made this, by statute, has made this sort of public-private cooperation possible, where we get a little bit of a break on the taxes and we're able to maintain these buildings, which, having been saved from the threat of developers, now we have to deal with rot in the back and water intrusion and checking that the structure is safe. We've been talking to the New Hampshire Preservation Alliance that does barn studies and barn grants, and we're looking at having a consultant come in and tell us exactly what it is that we need to do to keep this thing standing for everyone's enjoyment, including ours and hopefully the community's. So we have no intentions, obviously we're bound by the legalities of the easement deed should the board vote to approve this, and we'll comply with all of that, but just to give you our word in terms of our intentions. It's not to build an ADU or a house or live in it or anything. It's a cool old barn with post and beam construction, and we keep our farm implements and stuff in there, and that's the continued aim that we have, just so you know that. We're fortunate, I don't know if she wants to speak, but we're fortunate to be joined here tonight by Janet Coughlin, who is the great-great-granddaughter of the Merrills who originally bought the property in 1875. So happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Anybody have any questions? Go ahead, Richard.
Do you have any plans to seek registration on the National Register of Historic Places?
We're looking into it. I mentioned in our application that we would be eligible. I'm not sure how easy it is. There's a national registry and then there's a parallel state registry. I mentioned it to someone recently and they said, oh, you know, there's a whole bunch of trouble that follows from that as well. And I haven't really probed into what that means, but we'll definitely look into it. But I think we clearly fit the other two prongs of the statute in terms of the historic significance. I mean, there were Revolutionary War heroes who were born and died on this property, and it really is a part of the town's history.
Great, thank you.
Go ahead.
The solar panel that's actually in the front, near the, or in one of the directions of the barn, was that there when you purchased the property?
No, we installed that.
Okay. What are your intents after you actually get the tax savings?
To carry out the work on the barn that's recommended by the barn consultant. And so there's some, as I mentioned, there are drainage issues in the back of the barn that result in water splashing down onto the siding and sheathing, and so we want to fix that. And then I have some concerns. There's it's built on grade, the main barn, so there's sort of I don't want to say a basement, but a dirt crawl space area underneath there where you see support pillars, and water sometimes pools in there. So, I mean, most of our concerns have to do with preserving the integrity of the structure and arresting any rot that may be there.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is there anybody else in the public that'd like to speak to this?
Hi, Janet Coughlin, and I'm the great-granddaughter of the original farm. So we were very pleased that we did not have to sell to developers. Luckily, these two people came, and we decided as a family that we weren't going to sell to developers, period, but they are very conscious of the history, and we're teaching them how to do maple syrup and the rest of it. So we just want to say that we recommend, hopefully, that you will pass this, whatever it is, this easement. That's it?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anybody else? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Does this go to a vote now, or we wait?
No, you have the ability to vote on this evening.
Anybody have any questions that we shouldn't vote on this? Take a motion.
I move that we approve this application for discretionary preservation easement on map 4, lot 6, 68 Merrill Road.
Second.
Who's that, you? Motion by Jim, second by Joshua. Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. You're all set.
Thank you.
David, you want to come back up? We can finish our discussion.
Well, thank you for that.
No, I thank for, sorry I had to put you off to the side, but I wanted to make sure you hear everybody.
No, you keep a good schedule, so we like to keep it tight. I've never been known for my brevity either, so that made it even more complicated. Well, a couple of the things I wanted to say was, so let's assume we didn't transfer the open space to the Conservation Commission and instead create a homeowners association. And then what they typically do is put a conservation easement on that with the homeowners association, which means the town would have the exact same obligations. Actually, the obligations would be worse, because it's more difficult to deal with the homeowners association than to deal with yourself, you know, if you're the town. So there's really no, I don't see any advantage into not transferring it to the Conservation Commission. I certainly see some disadvantages, and again, namely the loss, not having the public access. This part of town is so developed, I mean, you can tell just by looking at the map, all the subdivisions are on there. And this is, you know, all the town parks and everything on the other side of town. This is a nice place for a walk, passive recreation in the backyard of so many residents. I think it'd be really appreciated.
What's our obligation as the town if we take that property?
If we take the property, then the Conservation Commission has to do an annual monitoring. We have to make sure that the boundaries are posted, which we do with these aluminum signs like we've done on other properties. We have to make sure that there's no one is intruding on the land or using it, you know, for purposes or vandalizing it. Make sure that the trails are in good shape. And this would be done by the volunteer stewardship monitors that from the Conservation Commission will appoint and train. I mean, we've had other public lands in town, and we do know that occasionally incursion can occur. Almost all the incursions that we've seen on town conservation land, they've pretty much all been on South Mountain. And that whole South Mountain, y'all know what a mess that is. It's, maybe you gentlemen don't, but it's you know, it used to be the Grand Hotel up there, and then later they sold it off into literally hundreds of little individual tiny lots.
My family owned one.
You know
Yeah.
what I was gonna say.
And his family donated their lot
Yes.
to the town, as did many others. So slowly these lots have all come back. That's a whole nother discussion that we're gonna have later this year.
Oh, boy.
Because I've been working on that, actually. I've been trying to sort out all the lots, the ownership train, and I've got it down to just 12. There's 12 of them that I'm having a hard time getting to the source of, so.
David, may I
eventually-
ask you a question
Yeah.
about this? What's the tax implication one way or another, based upon whether or not we take it or it goes to the conservation side of the HOA or whatever it is that gets put together?
It will be taxed at a very low rate because it's, will be in current use status. I don't have an exact number. That's a good question.
It
You
would
have
be
that?
different than
So,
homeowners.
so I did talk to the assessor about this.
Yeah.
So these open space or cluster subdivisions where you take the total number that your yield and you shrink down their lots. What the assessor informed me was typically the value of that lot takes into account that there is a buffer, whether it's a homeowners association or if it were to be held by conservation. That value is within the land of the individual lots, so it doesn't have a huge tax implication whether or not the town owns the open space portion or whether it's in a homeowners association.
So there's not a difference between the two?
No, not a significant difference, no.
What's significant?
I mean, and right now, it's got such a small value, all the open space, if you actually do look at it, there is actually, they divide it up amongst the number of lots.
Yeah.
But it's a reduced land value, so it's, you know, you're talking, you know, maybe tens of thousands of dollars of value, and then once you work that out, you're maybe talking, you know, less than $100 in tax revenue per lot. So
Okay.
it's not a big value piece.
So what do we need to do with this now?
Well, the request is, I mean, because this would have to go through a proper 4114A public hearing, you're certainly not making a decision on it now.
No, I'm saying, but what's the next
But
step?
The next step would be, if you're willing to consider this, then scheduling those 4114A public hearings.
Jim?
You mentioned, David, that some entities said no when you asked them if they wanted to take this over. Did that have anything to do with the property, or why did they say no?
The land trust, for one thing, they've really covering, I mean, the PLC used to just be the watershed. Now they cover land all the way down to the Massachusetts border. So they've become much more picky because they can only do so many projects per year. And they're much pickier about what they'll take in Goffstown than they used to be. And part of their selection criteria is they try to do lands that are contiguous with other conservation lands and have connections, because there is more conservation value in that approach, for sure. And this one's isolated. It's not contiguous with any other piece. I was surprised, actually, that they considered it as long as they did. And in the end, they decided no, it wasn't in their interest. They worry a lot about incursions. And when they see all these houses around it and it's isolated, they're afraid there's gonna be all kinds of incursions. But honestly, if you look at the open spaces and the subdivisions we have in town, I mean, a lot of them I haven't walked because they're private and I can't go in there.
Do you mean incursions based upon people building onto the land?
Yeah, people,
Okay.
you know, building something in it, treating it as if their own, cutting trees, dumping trash, whatever.
Well, I am pretty familiar with the land because I used to live up behind it and I used to go hunting up there.
Yeah.
And there are a number of people that go into there from the other developments on the other side and like drive four-wheelers up through there and all kinds of things.
So we would probably, we would definitely post it against the four-wheel access, because that just really tears things up pretty bad.
Well, it's definitely something that needs to be
Policy.
considered because I have seen a number of four-wheelers move up in there, basically taking them all the way up to set deer stands up and everything else in the back too.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I've observed over the years is when there have been properties where that was a big concern, like when the PLC acquired Ploss Pines. At first they didn't want to because there was a lot of four-wheel ATV access, and until somebody put up a sign that said no ATVs, and then it stopped. I mean, you have to at least try to regulate it before you know, throw it.
So we have to decide, if I understand what you're saying, we have to decide if we're gonna go ahead with the project and schedule some public hearings.
You have to decide if you want to move forward with the process. So under RSA 4114A, the first step in the process is you would ask both the Conservation Commission and the Planning Board for their recommendation on proposed acquisition of this open space portion. And then you would schedule 2 public hearings, and then there'd be a vote thereafter, 2 weeks after.
What's the negative of the town having that property? Is there?
So I think I expressed in the email that I shared with you and copied David, as always, I have concerns about stewardship. The town of Goffstown does not have a stewardship officer. Some of the bigger towns do have part-time stewardship conservation officers that will go out there. So that is always, my concern. We don't have the resources in town hall to be going out and checking all Conservation Commission properties. I think I brought this up when we discussed Snook Road, when there was a possible acquisition of land on that one as well. So provided Conservation Commission has a stewardship plan for all those properties and is providing the select board reports, I think then the select board could move forward with it. And ultimately, that's just me raising a concern to your attention. So it's really, that's one thing that I have a concern about.
So the thing, the action we should take now is get info from Conservation and Planning.
That would be, yes,
Have
if you.
the input from them.
Yep.
And at the same time, we ask Conservation is how we gonna, who's gonna maintain it, or who's gonna be watching it? Would that be accurate? Are we gonna, is that Conservation Commission, are they responsible for the stewardship if they do it this way?
So there's no requirement in the statute that the conservation or the town is takes care of the land that they acquire. But I think you're setting yourself up for potential issues in the future. If the town continues to acquire property, the executory interests that we have on when the Land Conservancy or some other group are great because they're doing all the work and they're going out there. But as the town, if you're going to continue to acquire land and hold it for conservation purposes, just basically untouched, at some point that could potentially become an issue. But there's no requirement in the statute for you to do that. You can simply go through the process, acquire it, and it just is on the town's books at that point.
And if it goes with the HOA, they're responsible for the land?
So if there were any disturbances within the open space, then we would have to work with the homeowners association to clean up those issues. If somebody was camping on them, if they were littering on them, when it becomes our land, it's something that we potentially, if we can't find the person that did it, it's difficult on some of these open space subdivisions because some homeowners associations haven't been set up. I believe there's another one in this area of town where it was, built, put out, but there's no real active homeowners association. That can create an issue when they go to land use boards for a butter notification and things like that, so.
My feeling on that is if you have a middleman, it makes it harder to manage.
I get it. I live in an HOA now, and like, not everybody's always active in it, and
Right.
like, you're gonna end up having problems there.
So I think we should go ahead and send it to the two departments and get their feedback. You need a motion on that?
Yeah, I'd appreciate if you could make a motion to initiate the RSA 4114A process for the open space on this. Again, this is a proposed subdivision. This has not received planning board approval at this point, but to at least engage with planning board and conservation commission, and then move forward with public hearings once we hear back from them.
Rather than repeat that, I would say so moved.
Second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by, can you repeat that, Jim? Seconded by Mark. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining? See you Wednesday.
Thank you.
Oh, not this Wednesday, it was canceled.
When's the next meeting? Last Monday of the month?
No, they canceled for this month.
We don't have a meeting
They
this month.
canceled for this month. They're gonna meet in April.
Okay.
So you're off the hook for a
I'm
meeting.
free Wednesday.
We can call a meeting.
They'll meet
That's
you,
okay.
they'll meet you at the trestle.
But I do hope to see all of you several times this year because, this is the year to get it all together on the stewardship front and get these plans
We
solidified.
use a little more time.
Look forward to working with you, David. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
You too, Gene.
Thank you.
Next up is the fire chief. And we're on 6A.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Morning, Chief.
I'm before you tonight seeking your permission to replace our 2017 ambulance. I know on the memo it may be 2000, you see 2019, it's actually
But it's a 17?
2017. It's a Freightliner M2 ambulance Ford. And this is part of our ongoing vehicle replacement program. And I'm also requesting that we utilize Sourcewell, which is a cooperative public procurement organization for which we have used previously to procure various items. So in this case, for our new members, a cooperative public procurement organization is a self-sustaining government organization that follows the competitive contracting law process to solicit, evaluate, and award contracts on behalf of government organizations. And you, Mr. Chairman, are probably familiar with the HD Houston Galveston Dallas Cooperative, which we've used before to purchase fire engines and apparatus. Our town purchasing policy allows us to use the cooperative purchasing contracts as outlined in general policy section 1.5 and section 2.3. So whenever we use those different organizations, we compare them amongst each other. And when we're looking for the specific ambulance we're looking for, we compared Sourcewell with the Houston Galveston Area Council, and the Houston Galveston does not have the manufacturer that we're recommending for the purchase of the ambulance. So that's why we're going with the Sourcewell cooperative. On the next page, I just put together some information on the ambulance. our current ambulance to be replaced. Like I said, is a Freightliner, and it's a road rescue manufacturer. It's currently got 99,000 miles on it. It responds to approximately 1,000 calls per year. It is in its 8th year of service, which you may recall back a couple years ago, we brought it down from 10 years to 8 years on the CIP program. And once we receive, we've got a new ambulance coming this fall, which replaced a totaled ambulance. When that comes in this fall, this current ambulance will move down to a reserve status to replace this other ambulance that is barely working. The bad part of this is the new ambulance delivery time is 30 months, 2 years and 6 months out.
One good question is, it's kind of confusing. So the current ambulance to be replaced is the 2017.
Right.
Okay. Now, the one that's coming in is replacing one that was totaled.
Right.
Okay. So the 2017 is going to go into reserve.
Right.
Until the one you're going to order, you're asking us to okay now, and then when that one comes in, what happens to the 17?
Exactly.
That one is replaced by a third ambulance that's older.
You lost me. I'm still lost.
Okay, so
How many ambulances do you have?
we have 4 ambulances.
Okay.
Okay, we have 3 in full service, and actually 2 in full service, and we keep 1 in reserve.
Now
Okay?
you're going, well, you just said you had 4. So
Now you're confusing me. No,
you have 3 ambulances
we
now.
have 3 ambulances.
2 are frontline and 1's a reserve.
That's
Is
right.
that accurate?
Yes,
Okay, is this one going to, when says it's going down to, you're going to add that as a 4th ambulance?
No.
Or you're going to get, one drops off the line?
the reserve ambulance right now is older and worse shape, so that goes away.
So you're trying to get rid of the 2009?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just the way it was, like, the way it was worded is kind of.
So just clarify, you only have 3 ambulances?
correct.
Okay, 1 is sitting in reserve status right now, you don't use it?
That's right.
Okay.
Well, that's not true. They use it quite often.
Well,
It
yeah.
seems like there's always one.
Almost
broken.
every day.
And not to confuse it anymore, but that one in reserve should have been gone 2 years ago. And,
Well, if it was 10 years, it should have been gone 6 years ago.
yeah,
Okay.
so the new ambulance would be, now here's where it gets tricky again, a 25 or a 26. We're not actually going to get the chassis until 2027. So what we're doing today is we're getting in line to have the ambulance built in 2027. And so there's no sense to buy the chassis now. So by the time we get there, it's going to be a 2027 chassis for the new ambulance. When it gets to its part in line, they will build the ambulance, which typically takes 9 or 10 months.
You're talking about the box.
Yes.
Yeah.
Putting the box on the chassis.
So Chief, I'm confused. Do you have one on order already?
Yes.
Yes.
The one that got in the accident.
We had one get in an accident back 2021. It was totaled by the insurance company, and they are paying to, fully pay it to replace it.
Okay.
So we've been waiting for that one, just coming up on 2 years, but we're told it'll be here this fall.
Okay, so that one will be here this fall, it's already paid for?
Right,
Okay. And that's replacing the 09?
right.
Okay.
And then, so, you know, in 2027, the chassis will come out, we'll buy it. There's a slight discount you get from that, and they'll build it once they have it.
So Chief, is the information in here incorrect? Because you said you're gonna get a 25, 26, so we're really getting a 27.
Yes, by the time we get it. However, we don't have to expend any money until 2027. So we're basically getting in line, you know, to get the ambulance built in 2027.
And these funds come out of the ambulance revolving funds.
Yes.
It has nothing to do with actual taxes.
Right. And there is, just for the boards, as of,
There's 800 and something,
Yes.
$832,898.94.
right. So in a way, that money will stay in there, increase on interest and stuff, and we won't have to actually pay for it until,
27.
yeah.
Okay, and we have another motion later to move money into this account, is that correct?
No,
No,
Okay.
no,
All
no.
right.
We would
This
just,
has nothing to, yeah, this is a,
Okay.
this is a
so
self-sufficient
this is,
account.
this is a revolving fund
Yeah.
that's under the select board controls.
Yeah.
Okay.
Money can't be expended out of that account without approval from the select.
Okay.
And the money we collect from insurance on billing, all that money,
That goes
by
in here.
law, goes into that revolving account.
Okay.
Any other questions? Mark, you want to make a motion?
Make a motion to authorize the fire chief to enter into a purchase and sales agreement with PL Customs and Sugarloaf Ambulance Vehicles of Alfred, Maine for a 2025 Ford F-550 PL Custom Ambulance at a cost of $396,442, using funds from the Goffstown Fire Department EMS revolving fund.
So, I guess before anybody seconds,
Okay,
it,
let's
is
get a
that
second-
for,
Let's get a second on it.
I'll second it.
A second, okay, we can second for discussion, go ahead.
is that accurate? Because we heard 2027,
As far as what?
the ambulance.
I think that's just the model year.
Can we,
not
yeah,
the
can we remove
actual
the
model
model,
per year.
could you remove the model year from the motion?
Instead of saying 2025, just leave for a
That'd be a
Ford
Ford.
550.
Ford F-550 PL Custom.
Right.
I'll remove the 2025.
You okay with that, Jim?
I am.
All right, so the motion's on the floor. Any further discussions, questions? Jim?
Said good. You have a bullet point in here on page 29 that says PL Custom price quote with a 5% discount. What? I'm confused on that.
So by using this cooperative,
Yeah, so it's
typically you save about 5%, which is consistent with
5% on what?
of the cost of the ambulance,
The box.
So it may be
Or the
cheaper
whole-
than.
the whole thing.
So it
The
may be
whole
cheaper
thing,
than.
chassis also?
So
Yeah.
maybe cheaper than 396,000?
No, the 396 is basically your 5% savings.
Okay, that's my question, all right.
Unfortunately, they're already up over 400,000 in less than 2 years.
You have a motion on the floor. Any further discussions, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. Thanks,
Thank you.
Chief.
Thank you.
Town Administrator,
Yes, at tab 7A, you have your committee meeting scheduled for the next 3 weeks. Wednesday at 6:30 PM, Historic District Commission will meet at Grassmere.
Yeah,
Is there a, I guess this is for Danielle, is there a meeting tomorrow on the safety?
No, there is not.
There's not. Was there supposed to be? Did I have that?
There was supposed to be one last week, but it got canceled.
So there's nothing?
We had proposed this coming week, but it didn't work for everybody.
Okay, thank you.
I got the HDC meeting there.
Great, thank you. Thursday, 7 PM, the planning board will be in this room. Next week, on Wednesday at 6 PM, Economic Development Council. And at 6:30 PM, Library Board of Trustees. And then the following week of April 7th, on Tuesday at 6 PM, Sewer Commission.
You got it.
And then on Thursday at 7 PM will be the planning board.
everybody all set?
Yeah, I'm good.
At your next page, you did have an updated consent agenda on your table before you. We have employee status reports for a full-time tax collector. This is the temporary stipend for DMV duties. You have a full-time deputy town clerk moved to per diem status. You have a full-time solid waste truck driver, successful end of probationary period. A full-time hourly truck driver at DPW, successful end of probationary period. You have a new hire of a per diem EMTB and a resignation of a per diem EMT. The item added today was the proclamation for National Library Week 2025. You have an event permit for Pinardville Lions Club Easter egg hunts on April 12th with a rain date of April 19th. That's at Roy Park. And then you have the NH Department of Revenue Administration form for the MS 232. This is the appropriations as voted at town meeting.
Which we just signed a little while ago.
Motion to approve consensus agenda as presented this evening.
Seconded.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Richard. Gotta remember, I'm looking over there, looking at Jim. Jim used to sit in that seat. Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
Thank you. At your next page, you have volunteer appointments. The Parks and Recreation Commission met on March 19th, and they made recommendations to reappoint Lance Ogier, Eric Emmerling, and Jane Stekowitz as members with terms from 2025 to 2028. And then they recommended appointment of Dan McInnes to move to a member for the remainder of a term ending 2026. He was an alternate member before that vote.
You want to take each one individually?
Yes, please.
I move to reappoint Lance Ogier as a community member with a term ending March 31st, 2028.
Second.
Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
I move to reappoint Eric Emmerling as a community member with a term ending March 31st, 2028.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Joshua, right?
Yep.
Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
I move to reappoint Jane Stekowitz as a community member with a term ending March 31st, 2028.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Joshua. Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
And last one.
I move to appoint Dan McInnes to fill vacant slot number 6, community member with a term ending March 31st, 2026.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Joshua. Any questions, discussions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
Thank you. At tab 7D, you have appointment of the tax collector and a reappointment of a deputy tax collector. So the first item on page 35, we're seeking a one-year reappointment of the tax collector with a term expiring March 31st, 2026.
I move to reappoint Lynn Pooler as deputy tax collector.
Go ahead. Okay,
Did I skip
you
one?
skipped
I
one.
skipped
That's
one.
okay, finish with Lynn.
Okay,
You finish with Lynn.
for a term expiring March 31st, 2026.
Second.
Motion by Jim, second by Joshua. Any discussions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
And motion to reappoint Stephanie Bodwin as a tax collector for the term expiring March 31st, 2026.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Joshua. Any questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
At tab 7E, you have a memo from the Finance Office, Article 12, which was the deposit of $350,000 from fund balance into the Fire Department Apparatus Capital Reserve Fund, was approved at town meeting. So we're seeking a vote by the Select Board to move those funds over to the trustees of the trust fund.
Motion to approve the funds of $350,000 over to the trustees of the trust fund.
To the Fire Department Apparatus
Aye.
Capital Reserve Fund and direct the treasurer to pay said funds from the unassigned fund balance as voted and motion for the Select Board Chair to sign the deposit voucher.
Yep.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Thank you. At tab 7F, you have a memo from the DPW director. Adam is seeking approval to release the draft request for bids. This is for guardrail installation and repair services. He regularly hires out contractors to install these new sections, whether it's a new section or for repair. And he's just seeking approval to put this out to bid.
I'll make a motion that we allow the DPW director to put the approval out for guardrail service repairs.
I had a question.
Go.
I'll second it, but
Okay, so motion by Mark, second by Jim. Go ahead. Any questions?
how does that work? Is when a guardrail gets smashed or something, he calls them in, and what are we doing? Just,
It's called insurance.
okay, well.
No,
how does
actually,
this work,
no,
I guess?
our property and liability insurance does not,
No, theirs.
does not cover, repairs of guardrails. We will seek reimbursement, if there is a responsible party, and, I think there was one a couple years ago where we actually put somebody on a payment plan, to reimburse the
Did it ever
town.
work out?
Yeah.
He's making payment every month.
Good.
So where does that typically, it's not gonna happen on the state roads, right? The class ones, the class
Correct,
two? That's
correct.
the responsibility of the state?
Yes,
Okay.
so the portion of Route 13 and 114, it's called the Urban Compact Zone. So once you get into the village, there's a sign up by Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
We would be responsible for those, and then any other town road.
Shirley Hill Mountain Road,
Yeah.
Tibbetts Hill Road, I mean, any of those places that have the guardrails. Henry Bridge has got a guardrail there. So, and what's happened in the past, if somebody hits it, hopefully, we see it, or,
Yes,
we
hopefully,
know
yes.
who did it.
Yeah.
And sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. If we know who did it, we chase them, their insurance to pay for it.
Does it lock us into a certain amount we have to pay the bidder if we sign on with the contract?
No, it doesn't have a minimum amount, but it does have,
It's
it
not a
does-
retainer price, if that's
No,
what.
yeah.
It does have unit prices for the beams, the metal posts, whether it's wood posts, those kind of things. So it's a per unit pricing, but there's not a minimum amount.
Do we expect anything in the contracts this year where they're gonna put something in, like an uptick due to the tariffs on steel and everything else that basically have gone into effect?
We won't know until he'll go out for
Yeah.
bid. You send it out for bid.
So
Or you
what
already got it.
we are, yeah, so what he has in here is, on page 42 of your packet, there are years 2 and 3, and we asked them to provide a bid price for that. So on the most recent, when the board approved street sweeping and roadside mowing, there was a percentage included in those. Now, those aren't as much, those are more labor related than they are
Materials.
Materials.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what we get back for a response, if there's some type of escalator that somebody tries to put in, but we'll keep an eye out for that.
We did run into that a little bit with the street sweeping and stuff when we had the fuel issue. I remember we had, people were looking at that and saying, well, what's the price of fuel gonna be? Especially
Exactly.
street sweeping, they work all day. Okay. Motion?
We did.
We already had the
Yeah,
motion.
already, I
Oh,
second.
I got right there, you brought it up.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
And then one item that we added today and that was distributed this evening is a request from the cemetery trustees. Currently, there are 11 cemetery trust funds that have what we would say unknown origin. They some date back to the 1800s, and we can't find the documentation on what the purpose of those, if it was for one of the particular cemeteries versus the other. And they basically have a combined principal of income of over $450,000 in these trust funds that the cemetery trustees have not been able to use. This is a very common problem in New Hampshire communities, and there is actually a process by where you can work with the Attorney General's Charitable Trust Unit, and then you make a petition to the court, and it's called the Cypre legal process, where we understand that these funds were given to the town for the purposes of maintaining cemeteries. So what you're doing is you're just re-clarifying that you're going to use it for the general upkeep of the cemeteries. We would be going out to seek that we could use both the income as well as the principal that the trustees of the trust fund have been tracking. So the request that's before you this evening is we currently have one employee that's out on medical leave in the cemetery division, and there are some savings there because of our short-term insurance. So what we would like to do, talking with Adam, is to request a budget line transfer of $10,000 to the cemetery legal services. This would be a new line in cemetery to allow them to really work with the town attorney to provide them all the documentation so that they can prepare the necessary paperwork to work with the New Hampshire Charitable Trust Unit, and then go to, you can file in either Superior Court or Probate Court, but to work with the attorney to do that.
So Derek, question on this one. So we're gonna spend $10,000 to get all the paperwork together.
Yes.
Do you foresee anything as part of the process where we're gonna have to put more money in to make sure that we go through some sort of like legal hearing or anything else like that, or is that all included in this?
So that would be for all the court filing fees, that would be for any, if we have to incur any costs for hearings or anything. Our current rate with them, that would give us a sufficient number of hours, that'd be, 40 hours with the town attorney to work with them. There's still gonna be some assistance that's gonna come from my office as well as the assistant town administrator. This is a project that's kind of been on the back burner since when Sue was here. So Sue had actually done quite a bit of the research, 10 years ago to bring this forward. So this is something that the cemetery trustees are really looking to move forward with. They have quite a few projects that they want to start tackling, and this will give them the funds to do that if these trust funds went through this process.
So 10 grand to claw back 450 grand. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Well, yes, but the 450 grand really, that cemetery trustees handles those funds.
They do, but right now they haven't touched these 11 trust funds.
I
These
know.
11 trust funds have just been on the books.
But my thing, when those funds, if those funds come back, right, the trustees would,
The trustees of the trustees would continue to maintain these, but we would understand that the cemetery trustees could use them for cemetery purposes.
Could we adjust the motion so that $10,000 out of that also comes back for what we paid in legal fees?
I'd have to get a direct answer on that. I don't believe, but I can see if some other towns have done that to reimburse the general fund. I can ask that.
I mean, they're getting the advantage of those monies, to get that money, it would only seem right that it came back to our general fund.
Correct.
I can ask.
Does that seem unreasonable?
It doesn't seem unreasonable. I just the ability to use these trust funds for cemetery purposes falls under the cemetery trustees statutes.
Right.
So I don't know if other towns have done that, but yeah,
Well,
we can definitely. I hear what you're saying. Yep.
Isn't the 10,000 coming from the cemetery?
It's coming from the operating budget,
Not-
so
not
it's
from the
coming
trustee.
It's coming. It's
It's the
coming from
DPW.
tax. Property taxes. It's
Right.
coming from.
As the DPW, cemeteries in the DPW budget,
Yes.
and that person that went out, and usually we have the money from, gets part of DPW, a charge of the cemeteries.
Yeah, whereas what we're kind of proposing is that we loan them the money
Right.
in order to free it up.
Right.
We can definitely ask that.
Okay.
When they have a sum of almost $500,000, can they invest that money or do anything with it?
The trustees of the trust fund
They do
invest
that
our
temporarily,
trusts, so yes, they have ownership of those trust funds, and they invest those, and they have those in what are approved investments or a certain number of investments, but yes. And then more recent trust funds that we have the trust documents, a lot of times the income can be spent for upkeep or flowers. We have a lot of flower funds that can be used.
But not for legal fees or anything like that?
No, we need somebody else to come forward with a trust fund and propose to do legal fees.
Yes, the trust funds are very specific. So, all right, so do you need a motion to go?
Yeah, so my motion would be to request for approve a budget line transfer. Again, it's staying within the cemetery division, but we're moving it from those saved full-time wages and just putting them in a legal services line. And then I can look up if the Cypre process, it's a lengthy process and it does take a while to go through the court system, but if we can reimburse the general fund for any funds used for that purpose.
Well, I think that would be part of
The motion, right?
Yeah, go ahead, Jim, I'm sorry.
I'll move to approve the budget line transfer of $10,000 and that the town administrator investigate whether that $10,000 can be returned to the general fund at some point. From cemetery FT wages 1950000-41100 to cemetery legal services 1950000-4500 for the purpose of working with the town attorney to pursue cypre process for cemetery trust funds as presented.
Second.
Motion by Jim, you want to read that again? I'm just kidding.
Good job,
Seconded by
Jim.
Joshua. And I still think that we're taking monies from the town side and giving it to using it for the cemetery, who could potentially be getting $450,000 and not getting reimbursed. Is kind of a strange deal. But in the same vein, if, let's say, fund number 6 is from 1/1 of 1900, it's specific, it can only go to a specific thing, we can't do that. Would that be accurate?
If we had the trust documents that clearly said where these funds could be used, we would work with the trustees of the trust fund to clean
But you
up.
can't.
A lot of these is we don't have the trust fund document
Okay,
anymore.
all right.
So we simply can go back through the old annual reports and any other information and just say, we know that the trustees of the trust fund have been holding on to this money for cemetery purposes. That's all we have, and that's,
Okay, so I have a motion by Jim, seconded by Joshua. Any further discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes. Next up. What's next? It's digital?
The first item I have under Select Board, Old Business, the review and adoption of the rules of procedure. This was presented to you at your meeting last week, and on page 55 of your packet, we did add one additional change. Originally, the recommended changes that we presented to you last week were with regards to some of the committees under Appendix A, and those remain, but under board relationships to town departments, right now, the way the rules of procedure are written is any request for information shall go through the town administrator. That's not necessarily the practice. So what we'd like to do is just amend the language that board members can request information from department heads, but that the department head would share that back with the entire board, so the entire board has that information, and also share it with the town administrator. Again, we're just trying to make sure that, and then the other clarifying item would be that it's going from one select board member, copying the chairman on that request, but not including the entire board on the email chain, because we don't want.
They don't have to. They could if they want to.
We would prefer that you don't.
Okay.
We would prefer that individual board members send your request through the department head, and when the department head sends a reply, he's BCCing the entire select board. So you're receiving that information, but that just avoids any of the respond to all where you might have people responding to that initial or in your, it's just a little bit cleaner that way.
I just noticed you have a typo in 4232, 123, the third red line down. I think it should be department head, not department hall.
I like Department Hall.
Yeah, I like-
Who's on
Yep,
that?
okay, I can make that change. Yep. Thank you. So those are our recommended changes, and then any other changes that the board
You
would.
made changes earlier in it.
Yes, those are on the page prior, on page
Right.
54. Again, just renaming CIP to Capital Improvement Program Committee, adding the Goffstown River Advisory Committee, and then removing the Wellness Committee under 312.
Any questions, anybody? Take a motion.
Make a motion to approve the changes.
Updated.
Huh?
Updated.
Updated and changes, yeah, to the procedures of the Goffstown Select Board and committee appointed by the Select Board.
Second.
Motion by Mark, second by Joshua. Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, motion passes.
The next item under the select board old business is, there was some discussion last week about consideration of a digital signature policy. We did some research. Many of the schools throughout the state of New Hampshire actually have digital signature policies, and in your packet you have a copy of the Goffstown School District's policy. And we were only able to find one town. So when we started looking into this a little bit further, RSA 294-E, it actually provides for the legal recognition of electronic signatures within the state of New Hampshire. So a policy may not be necessary, but perhaps the board wants to adopt some procedures. If this is something that select board is looking to do digital signatures on items, we could perhaps start to do the signature policy through digital signatures. We would do it a little bit different. Right now, there are only two items that the select board has authority under state law to approve outside a meeting. That is your accounts payable warrant, and that's your payroll warrant. Basically, you're able to review the warrants and non-contemporaneously sign those warrants, which instructs the treasurer to issue those payments. Everything else has to be done at a public meeting. Any other decision that you make that would result in a board signing a grant agreement or some type of document, it must be voted on first at a select board meeting.
But does that mean you can't have the electronic signature after the meeting?
We could, if that is more convenient and you prefer that. We could also adopt some type of hybrid where members that wish to review it ahead of time sign it the night of, and then what we would have to do is scan it in and send it out for digital signature afterwards. So that, I don't know that a policy would necessarily be necessary, but if you want to change some procedures on how we're doing things, we could do that. My only thing right now with the accounts payable warrant is we have all the invoices that go with it. We don't currently scan those. So if the board was,
That'd be a lot of work.
well, it's very easy for us to provide you a digital copy of the warrant that actually shows who the vendor is going to and who the payment's being made to and the description of it. We can provide that to you and do a digital signature. The scanning of invoices at this time would be a new task that would have to be done.
My understanding was you're planning on doing that later in the year anyways, no?
We have what's called Tyler Content Manager. It is a module in our financial software whereby you scan in each invoice and it gets attached. We are not at that point of implementing. Right now, we are onboarding 3 new people in finance out of 4.5. So that would be, if we get it implemented, it wouldn't be till the end of the year.
Right, the end of the calendar year,
Calendar year.
not the,
And
not
that's
the fiscal
best-
year.
Correct, that's a best case scenario.
Okay.
Calendar year is our physical year.
Well, you get your money in March.
No, yeah, technically.
So your
but-
fiscal year starts when you get your money.
No,
No.
our
Fiscal
our
year starts
financial
January.
year starts January 1st, so the first 3 months, we actually operate until we start collecting taxes in May.
Yeah. No, our fiscal year is January, December 31st. So, that said, because I still think it's important, as you guys saw me going through the show, every week I've had some kind of a question. I don't think that we're at that point yet. Now, the payroll is a different story, because that needs to be done on a Monday or,
So that typically,
Tuesday
that process is completed on a Tuesday afternoon, and our payroll goes out Thursday.
right.
So we could, if you'd like to start there, we could send that out for a digital signature on that one. That way you're not, forced to come in and review that.
Do you need everybody's signature on the invoices? Or
We
only
need a
3?
majority of the board, we need 3 board members to review it, to sign off on it before the treasurer can issue checks.
Right, so, but not all of us will always be here.
Correct.
So I think the hybrid approach may make the most sense.
Now, I don't want to push it fast if we're not ready for it, though.
Well, the hybrid approach was.
So I think the hybrid approach would be tomorrow morning, we would take it, and in the past, if there were 2 signatures on it, Catherine would call select board
somebody, come
members
on.
and say, can you come in and sign it? At that point, what we could do is scan it in and send it requesting a digital, you would have to review the entire warrant, go through all the payments. You wouldn't have the benefit of having the invoices in front of you doing it at the same time, but you could still review all the information on
I think it
the
reduces the risk and you still expedite the process.
What's involved with the technology of that? Implementing that?
So right now we use Adobe Sign. That's I guess the cheapest solution
Less
that we have.
expensive.
It's the least expensive. There are other programs out there. There's DocuSign. There's many different products that are out there that could do it. As we're moving towards more digital, eventually our Records Retention Committee, which is a staff committee, we're going to have to come up with a solution for a document management system. But right now, the easiest way that we've found is to use Adobe Sign, send it to people, email it, it timestamps it, it locks in your email when you did it, and it's a very secure process.
Can I add to that process, Derek? What happens is they take the document, they walk over, they scan it on the scanner.
Yep.
They upload it, and then they basically put the signature lines and they send an email to us to sign.
We do it already, we already
do
doing
that.
that.
Yes, we have done that,
We've done it.
So,
Yeah.
so
We're
that's
already
it.
using that.
but we just haven't done it for the warrants.
And I think it's our responsibility to go through those bills and look at it. You had a question tonight, when I was going through the bills, I found it, and said, here's what that expense was.
Sure.
And if you don't have that, you're just scanning it, and you don't have any questions, you don't know what to look at. I gotta look at the bills,
But my question
But I've been doing
started,
it for so long, I would feel funny not looking at the bills.
yeah, but my question started from the other document.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
So,
So if I was able to, you had a question on that document, and I was able to give you the answer by going through the bills.
sure, but I could also just send an email to anybody and ask them
Oh, well,
that
then you're
question.
creating more work for somebody else to have to go research it.
Well, you're still creating a work when you actually put the Post-it note on it, and then they have to go through it. So it's the same amount of work.
Unless you're looking at the bill and you say, okay, that's what it's for.
Yeah.
Like, if you were looking at that
Peter's
today,
talking, you're talking about the situations where the question answers itself just by looking at it with your own eyes.
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think you're gonna save work. If you're looking at the thing and say, oh, what's this $10,000 bill for? Then you're gonna have to email somebody. Whereas if you're looking at the bills and say, oh yeah, here it is right here, that's what that's for.
Sure, I get that, Peter, but point of the matter is if we're going to expand out and allow other people to also participate at some point in time, we have to move beyond the traditional approach.
Participate doing what?
Like if we have other people, like even myself coming in, like I travel. I travel because I have a full-time job and I'm here. I'm going to be on the road and there are going to be times when I cannot come in that weekend and I need to sign it. And you guys are going to need me to sign something. So if you need me to do that, the only way that's going to happen is if I put that digital signature on. I can also work with you guys, and I trust that you're going to look through some of those things. So that's a collaboration of this board.
Right. Okay, I mean, we can move forward with.
So if the board's okay with it, we can start doing our weekly payroll warrant. Again, that's a one-sheeter. We can send that with all the supporting documentation that you currently do. We can do that as a digital signature, because again, that's during the middle of the week. And then we can approach it on that hybrid, when we only have 2 signatures on a Tuesday morning. And finance has to get those checks out, we can start doing that as well.
I like that approach, Derek. So only if we don't meet the 3 signatures.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll miss Catherine.
I can have her give you a call as well and let you know that it's been emailed out.
Okay, next up is the stipend for elected officials. Where do we stand on that?
Okay, so in your packet, you have just a little bit of the total overview of what the different stipends were and which lines they hit. You have the 5 select board members under admin. You have 3 supervisors of the checklist under elections and the 1 moderator. The one clarification that we did get from NHMA Legal was an elected official can decline a stipend. So that is an option that an elected official, if you were to do this. The other thing is finance has gone ahead, is if you do move forward, then you have the ability to, we have a simple form that basically states that an elected official is declining that. They have the ability to, during the year, they could change that if for some reason they need to change you, but they wouldn't be able to do it retroactively.
So you need a signature.
Yes.
Can I do that digitally? I'm just.
Yes, yes. So the select board has not voted on this issue in 2025, and absent a vote by the select board, the finance office is gonna continue payments on elected officials' stipends. And then what we would ask for is a budget line transfer to move funds into elections and admin.
But Derek, I think there's a misconception here, right? We're not voting to reinstate the stipends. The stipends never went away,
Right.
Correct.
right? And the budget committee basically removed the appropriation line for that, because they're an appropriation committee.
The appropriation is 0, yep.
Right. So they never got rid of the legal obligation that we have.
I'll just caution, I don't know about
Okay.
legal law.
It never got rid of the obligation.
Yes, yes, correct.
So the obligation still sits there.
Yes, and finance office has been paying them in the first pay period of each month, yes.
And the only party that can do that is the governing body that can basically get rid of that.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
The budget committee had no ability to remove the obligation.
The appropriation, yes, but the actual payment of them, correct.
Okay, I just wanted that clarified because I think there's a lot of misconception out there about what was removed and what isn't.
Well, you know, there's so many ways to look at what happened in that whole situation. What's irritating is they picked certain people to get the stipend. But I'm just saying, so does that make them HR now and hiring people and telling?
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Peter. Like, there should have been a proper discussion around that. There should have been an investigation about it, but that's neither here nor now. I think.
So, we're taking no action, it stands if it stands.
It would stand, they're $0 lines, we would overspend those, and as we go through the budget, again, we want to be thoughtful of what's on the DRA forms as we go through the year. But, yes, correct, those are $0 detail lines, not overall lines on the DRA
Right.
form.
So we have a fiduciary responsibility to keep it in budget and figure out if we can take it for some other place.
Correct.
Okay.
You don't need to make that decision this evening. That could be as part of a general budget line transfer. The other option is if you wanted to move funds into admin elected officials and election elected officials, we would suggest that you pull from one of the departments that has had vacancies. Specifically, that would be either the fire full-time wages or the police full-time wages, because again, they've had vacancies for the first 3 months of the year.
Okay. Is that what you want to do?
That would make it much cleaner, so that when we go, we are much more assured that we're not overspending.
Fire's got a lot of money. He's raising his hand, me.
No, I was saying PD.
Oh, I saw it was your hand raised, I don't know.
Wish Eric was here.
Derek, one quick question. The wage lines that you're suggesting the transfer comes from, do they already add up to the 38,000 or 36,500? Sorry.
They will have sufficient funds,
Okay.
yes.
So we're not planning something for the future. It's already happened.
The department heads have not made us aware of anything.
Go ahead, Mark.
So this afternoon, as you all know, I got a bum foot, I can't do very much. I sat in front of my wife's computer and I went on the New Hampshire checklist, supervisor checklist, hourly stipend and salary. I just oddly picked probably a dozen of them or so, and how you get paid or how you're going to get paid is an hourly rate per the thing. If we spend, all of us here, if we all spend hours instead of getting a stipend of a certain pay, we're going to go broke probably no time.
The amount of hours you spend.
Well, some of the other towns already get paid hourly.
Huh?
Some other towns already get paid hourly.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I just so that we all know, I mean, the $36,538, you can add that up pretty quick on the pages that, you had.
So as of right now, we'll take no action.
Yeah, we'll take no
Okay.
action. and
Okay.
We'll still get paid the way we get paid, and that'll be it.
Okay. And then
And
if there,
if you
and
want
then,
to donate your money, you just
so,
sign the thing.
so what we'll do is we will reach out to the select board member, supervisor of the checklist, and moderator. Moderator's already But if they wish to decline
Yeah.
their stipend, finance will have a form for them.
Good enough. Next is the old business. Did you guys do anything with the police department thing?
I expect the police chief to be in your April meeting to
Okay.
make a recommendation. We received 3 bids and he's been reviewing those, but he felt it better to delay it until the new board was
Okay.
seated before bringing in a recommendation.
We're working on the 2 grants, right?
Yes, yep, we hope to hear back from NHDOT on the Transportation Alternative Program grant soon. The Bridge Committee presented to Southern New Hampshire Planning 2 weeks ago and said that that went well. So the next step is we should be hearing in about May on that grant. And then the Firehouse Subs grant is a rolling admission.
Right. Anything else? Anybody here for public? Anybody here to speak for public? Not being anybody? Crowds, nothing.
That's good. I'd like to go into non-public session, RSA 91A:3, 2A compensation and B hiring. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Second.
Jim?
Yes.
Roll call, yes.
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 That'll conclude tonight's public portion of the meeting. We'll be going into non-public now.